The fluorescent lights in Dr. Marianne Chen's office felt too bright, too harsh against the news I'd just received. I sat there, my hand instinctively moving to my belly, where a tiny life was growing while my entire world crumbled around me. "Mrs. Lawson," Dr. Chen repeated, her voice gentle but insistent. "Did you hear what I said? According to your husband's medical records that were transferred here, he had a vasectomy 3 years ago. A complete bilateral vasectomy. There's no way he could be the father of this baby." I stared at her, my mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "That's impossible," I finally managed to whisper. "Marcus and I have been trying for a baby for 2 years. He told me we just needed to be patient, that it would happen when the time was right." Dr. Chen's expression shifted from professional concern to something deeper, something that looked almost like pity. "Naomi, I need to ask you something very important. Is there any possibility that someone else could be the father?" The question hit me like a slap. "No," I said firmly, anger rising in my chest. "I've never been with anyone else. Marcus is my husband. We've been married for 8 years. There has to be a mistake in those records." But even as I said it, fragments of memory began assembling themselves into a horrifying picture. Marcus's insistence that we didn't need fertility testing, his refusal to let me come to his annual physical appointments, the way he'd changed the subject every time I mentioned seeing a specialist together, the weekend trip he'd taken alone 3 years ago, claiming it was a mandatory work conference. Dr. Chen pulled up something on her computer screen. "Naomi, these records are from Riverside Medical Center. They show Marcus David Lawson, date of birth March 15th, 1985, underwent the procedure on June 12th, 3 years ago. The surgeon was Dr. Peter Vance. It's all here, including the follow-up confirmation that the procedure was successful." My hands started shaking. I gripped the armrests of the chair so hard my knuckles went white. "Why would he do that? Why would he lie to me for 3 years about wanting a baby?" "I don't know," Dr. Chen said softly. "But Naomi, if you're 8 weeks pregnant and your husband can't be the father, we need to figure out what happened. Have you been to any medical procedures lately? Any fertility treatments you might not remember clearly?" I shook my head, but then something flickered in my memory. 6 months ago, Marcus had surprised me with a romantic weekend at a spa resort. He'd insisted I try their exclusive wellness treatment, a special vitamin IV therapy that he said would boost my fertility. I'd been so hopeful, so trusting. The nurse who administered it had been very friendly, very thorough. I'd felt drowsy afterward, sleeping for hours. "There was this spa treatment," I said slowly. "6 months ago, Marcus arranged it. They gave me an IV, said it was vitamins and fertility. Boosters." Dr. Chen's face went pale. "Naomi, I think you need to sit down with your husband and have a very serious conversation. But more than that, I think you might need to involve the police." "The police?" My voice came out as a squeak. "If what I'm thinking happened actually happened, this could be a criminal matter. But first, let's confirm the pregnancy and get you checked out completely. I want to make sure you and the baby are healthy." The rest of the appointment passed in a blur. Blood tests, another ultrasound, paperwork. Dr. Chen kept speaking, but I could barely hear her over the roaring in my ears. When I finally walked out to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, unable to start the engine. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "How did the appointment go, sweetheart? Everything okay with your stomach bug?" I'd told him I was seeing Dr. Chen because I'd been feeling nauseous. I'd thought it was food poisoning or stress from my job at the architecture firm. The pregnancy had been a complete surprise. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I didn't respond to Marcus's text. Instead, I drove, not toward home, but toward my best friend Vanessa's house. Vanessa had been my college roommate, my maid of honor, and the one person who'd always told me the truth even when it hurt. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. "What happened? Is it Marcus? Did something happen to him?" "I'm pregnant," I said, and then burst into tears. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. You've been trying for so long." Vanessa hugged me, but I pulled away. "Marcus had a vasectomy 3 years ago, Vanessa. He's been lying to me this whole time. He can't be the father of this baby. And I've never been with anyone else, and I don't understand what's happening." Vanessa's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, and then something I'd never seen before, a flicker of guilty knowledge. "Vanessa," I said slowly, watching her face, "what do you know?" She turned away, walking to her kitchen. "I need coffee for this. You want tea?" Vanessa, what do you know? I repeated, following her. She stopped, her back still to me. When she finally turned around, there were tears in her eyes. Naomi, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to believe it. But 6 months ago, when you were at that spa, Marcus came here. He was with someone. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Who? Your sister Naomi. He was with Diana. The name hit me like a physical blow. Diana, my younger sister by 3 years. Diana who'd always been the pretty one, the fun one, the one who got all the attention. Diana who'd cried at my wedding and told me how lucky I was to find someone like Marcus. Diana who'd been coming to our house for Sunday dinners every week for the past year. You're lying, I whispered. I wish I was, Vanessa said, tears now streaming down her face. They were in my neighborhood, walking into the Fairmont Hotel. They were holding hands, Naomi. They were laughing. I wanted to tell you, but I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe my husband was just holding hands with my sister for fun. I cut her off, my voice bitter. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I'm so sorry. I sank into one of Vanessa's kitchen chairs, my mind racing. The spa treatment, the drowsiness, the hours I couldn't account for. Vanessa, I think Marcus had someone artificially inseminate me at that spa. I think he wanted me pregnant with someone else's baby. Why would he do that? Vanessa looked horrified. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I went home that afternoon with a plan. I would act normal. I would smile. I would pretend everything was fine while I investigated. I couldn't let Marcus know I suspected anything. He was in the kitchen when I arrived cooking dinner. Marcus was a cardiologist, successful and well-respected. He looked like the perfect husband in his casual jeans and button-down shirt, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry. Hey, beautiful, he greeted me with that warm smile that used to make my heart skip. How are you feeling? What did Dr. Chen say? She thinks it's just a stomach virus, I lied smoothly. Gave me some anti-nausea medication. Should be fine in a few days. Good, good. He kissed my forehead. I was worried about you. You've been looking pale lately. I watched him move around our kitchen, the kitchen we'd renovated together 2 years ago, and wondered who this man really was. How could someone lie so completely? How could someone betray so thoroughly? Marcus, I said carefully, remember when we talked about seeing a fertility specialist? Maybe we should actually make that appointment. I really want a baby, and it's been 2 years. I watched his face carefully. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Sure, honey. Let's give it a few more months, and if nothing happens naturally, we'll definitely look into it. These things take time. He was so smooth, so practiced. How long had he been lying to me? That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I crept into his home office. It was a small room off the living room where he kept his medical journals, his laptop, and his files. I'd never snooped before. I'd trusted him completely. His laptop was password protected, but I knew Marcus used the same password for everything. Our wedding date. I typed it in, and the screen lit up. I started with his email. Most of it was work-related, boring medical correspondence. But then I found a folder labeled Personal Archive. Inside were dozens of emails to an address I didn't recognize. dd2891gmail.com. I clicked on the most recent one, dated 2 weeks ago. D, I can't wait until this is over. Just a few more months and we can be together publicly. N suspects nothing. She's so naive, so trusting. Everything is going exactly as planned. The baby should be conceived soon, and once it is, we'll have what we need. I love you so much. Can't wait until she's out of the picture and you can move in permanently. D, Diana. My sister had always gone by D to her friends. I scrolled through more emails, my stomach churning with each one. They'd been having an affair for over 2 years. They'd been planning this for months. But planning what? Why did they need me pregnant? I found my answer in an email dated 3 months ago, sent from Diana to Marcus. Are you sure this will work? What if the trust fund conditions can't be met? Your lawyer friend said the baby has to be genetically related to Naomi for her to access the inheritance, right? That's why we're using her egg with the donor sperm. Marcus, this is so complicated. Why can't we just divorce her and be together? Marcus's response made my blood run cold. It won't work that way, D. If I divorce Naomi before the inheritance comes through, I get nothing. Her father's will was very specific. She has to be married to me and have a biological child by the time she's 35 to access the $50 million. She turns 35 in 8 months. If she's pregnant now, the baby will be born just in time. And because I'm listed as her husband and the presumed father, I'll have access to everything as her spouse and the child's legal parent. Once the money is transferred, we can arrange an accident. Make it look natural. Then you and I can raise the baby together with all that money and no one will ever know. I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. They were planning to kill me. My husband and my sister were planning to murder me for my father's inheritance. My father, Douglas Harrison, had been a commercial real estate mogul. He'd died 5 years ago in a plane crash. I'd inherited his house, some investments, but the bulk of his fortune, $50 million, had been placed in a trust with very specific conditions. I had to be married and have a biological child by age 35, or the money would go to charity. Marcus had known about this trust. I told him about it when we got engaged, explaining why I wanted children relatively young. He'd seemed so understanding, so supportive. Now I realized he'd been planning this from the beginning. I kept reading, discovering more horrifying details. The spa treatment had been an egg retrieval, done while I was sedated. They'd used my eggs with donor sperm to create embryos, then implanted one during what I thought was a vitamin IV treatment. Marcus had paid off the spa owner and the medical staff. It had all been carefully orchestrated. And the plan after the baby was born? A staged car accident timed for right after the trust fund was released. Marcus had already drafted a will leaving everything to him, which I'd signed years ago, not thinking anything of it. He'd even taken out a large life insurance policy on me last year. I sat there in the dark office, trembling with rage and fear. My husband wanted me dead. My sister wanted me dead. And they were using my own baby as the key to my murder. But I wasn't the naive, trusting woman they thought I was. Not anymore. The next morning, I called Dr. Chen from my car during my lunch break. Doctor, I need genetic testing on this baby as soon as possible. I need to know who the biological father is. Naomi, are you all right? You sound... I'm fine, I lied. I just need answers. Can you help me? She agreed to order the tests. I also called a lawyer, not my family attorney who'd helped with my father's estate, but a new one specializing in criminal law. Her name was Patricia Moreno, and she came highly recommended for complex fraud cases. I met Patricia that evening at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood. I brought printouts of every email I'd found, along with my father's trust documents. Patricia read through everything, her expression growing darker with each page. Naomi, this is attempted murder conspiracy, fraud, and possibly medical battery for the unauthorized procedures. You need to go to the police immediately. Not yet, I said. I need more evidence. I need to catch them in the act. On record, admitting what they've done. Otherwise, it's just emails that could be explained away. Patricia looked at me with new respect. What do you have in mind? My sister Diana is supposed to come to dinner this Sunday like she does every week. I'm going to record everything. I'm going to get them to confess. Patricia nodded slowly. I can help you with that. We'll need to wire you, get video if possible. But Naomi, this is dangerous. If they suspect anything... They won't, I said with a certainty I didn't entirely feel. They think I'm stupid. They think I'm easy to manipulate. Let them keep thinking that while I build my case. The genetic test results came back 3 days later. I was indeed pregnant, 8 weeks along, and the baby's father was listed as unknown donor 4873 from a fertility clinic in Los Angeles. My baby had been conceived with my egg and sperm from some random donor, probably paid off by Marcus, but the baby was genetically mine. That was what mattered for the trust, and that was what Marcus was counting on. Sunday dinner arrived. I'd spent the week being the perfect, unsuspecting wife. I'd smiled, cooked Marcus's favorite meals, and even sent Diana a text telling her how much I looked forward to seeing her. Patricia had arranged for 2 tiny cameras to be installed in our dining room, one in a decorative plant, another hidden in the bookshelf. I wore a small recording device tucked into my bra. Everything was ready. Diana arrived at 5 p.m., carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a dress that was a little too low cut for a family dinner. She hugged me tightly, kissing my cheek. Naomi, you look wonderful, glowing even. Thank you, I said, sweetly. I've been feeling really good lately, almost energetic. It's strange. I saw her exchange a quick glance with Marcus. They knew. Of course they knew I was pregnant. Marcus must have checked my medical record somehow. We sat down to dinner. Roasted chicken, Marcus's favorite. I'd made everything perfect. As we ate, I steered the conversation carefully. You know, I've been thinking, I said casually, about the future, about children. Marcus nearly choked on his wine. Oh? Yes, I really think we should see that fertility specialist soon. I'm not getting any younger, and the trust fund deadline is coming up. Diana's fork clattered against her plate. The trust fund? You know, Daddy's trust. I have to have a baby by my 35th birthday, or the 50 million goes to charity. It's been weighing on my mind. I smiled innocently. I'd hate to lose all that money just because we couldn't conceive. Marcus recovered quickly. Don't worry, sweetheart. I have a feeling things are going to work out perfectly. Really? What makes you say that? I pressed. Just a hunch. He smiled that charming smile. Sometimes these things happen when you least expect them. Diana was watching me carefully, suspicion starting to cloud her features. Naomi, why are you bringing this up now? No reason, just thinking about the future. Our future. I turned to Marcus. You want children, don't you, honey? You've always said you did. Of course I do, he said smoothly. Good, because I have some exciting news. I paused, watching both their faces. I'm pregnant. The silence that fell over the table was deafening. Marcus's face went through several expressions: shock, fear, confusion, then forced joy. Diana looked like she'd been slapped. That's wonderful, Marcus finally managed. How long have you known? Just found out a few days ago. Dr. Chen confirmed it. 8 weeks along. 8 weeks, Marcus repeated slowly. That's perfect timing. Isn't it? I agreed. Almost like it was planned. Diana stood up abruptly. I need to use the restroom. As soon as she left, Marcus leaned forward. Naomi, this is incredible news. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to be sure first, and I wanted to tell you and Diana together. She's family, after all. My sister should know. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly at the emphasis I put on sister. Diana returned a few minutes later, her face composed but her hands trembling slightly. We finished dinner with strained small talk. After dessert, Diana asked to speak with Marcus privately in his office. Just some advice about a medical thing, she said with a fake smile. Boring heart stuff. You don't mind, do you, Naomi? Of course not, I said sweetly. I'll just clean up. As soon as they were in the office with the door closed, but not locked because they didn't know I'd disabled the lock mechanism earlier, I crept closer with my phone. The recording device in my bra was capturing everything, but I wanted video too. I could hear their voices rising, angry and panicked. She knows, Diana hissed. She has to know. The way she was talking. She doesn't know anything, Marcus insisted. She's just excited about the baby. But how did you not know she was pregnant? You're her husband. I've been monitoring her medical records, but Chen must have flagged her file as private. I couldn't access the recent updates without raising suspicion. This is a disaster, Diana said. What if she figures it out? What if she finds out about the vasectomy? She won't. She's not smart enough to put it together. She's not as stupid as you think, Marcus. She's been asking weird questions all week. Vanessa called me yesterday asking if I knew anything about you and me. Someone saw us at that hotel. Vanessa wouldn't tell her anything. They're best friends, but Vanessa knows Naomi would be devastated. She'll keep quiet to protect her. What if she doesn't? What if Naomi goes digging? If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. There was a long pause. Then Marcus spoke, his voice cold and calculated. Then we move up the timeline. The baby isn't due for 7 months, but accidents can happen earlier. A fall down the stairs, a car accident, something that looks natural but takes care of our problems sooner. Marcus, are you talking about killing her before the baby is born? If necessary. The trust says she has to have a child by 35. It doesn't say the child has to be born alive, or that she has to survive the birth. We could claim she died in childbirth. With my medical expertise, I can make it look completely natural. I'd heard enough. I stepped away from the door, my whole body shaking with rage and horror. They were planning to murder me, possibly murder my unborn child, and steal everything. But I had them on tape now, multiple recordings, multiple cameras. I had all the evidence I needed. I went back to the kitchen and finished cleaning up as if nothing had happened. When Marcus and Diana emerged from the office, I was humming cheerfully. Everything okay? I asked brightly. Perfect, Marcus said, kissing my cheek. Just perfect. Diana left shortly after, hugging me goodbye with false warmth. Take care of yourself, sis, and that baby. Oh, I will, I promised. I'm going to protect this baby with everything I have. After Diana left, Marcus suggested we go to bed early. You need your rest, he said. Growing a baby is hard work. I agreed, playing the dutiful wife. But once Marcus was asleep, I slipped out of bed and went to my car. I'd hidden a bag there earlier, clothes, cash, important documents, copies of all the evidence. I drove to Patricia Moreno's office. She was waiting for me, along with 2 police detectives. I handed over everything: the recordings, the videos, the emails, the medical records showing Marcus's vasectomy, the documentation of the unauthorized medical procedures. "This is enough for arrest warrants," Detective Sarah Mitchell said grimly. "This is conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, medical battery. They're both going away for a long time." "I want to be there when you arrest them," I said. "Naomi, that's not how we usually—" "I want to be there," I repeated firmly. "I want to see their faces when they realize I'm not the naive idiot they thought I was." The detectives exchanged glances. Finally, Detective Mitchell nodded. "All right, tomorrow morning, we'll do it at your house." I spent the night at a hotel, unable to sleep. I kept thinking about how close I'd come to disaster. If I hadn't felt nauseous, if I hadn't gone to Dr. Chen, if I hadn't found those emails, I would be dead within a few months, and my baby might be dead too. The next morning, I drove home early. Marcus was in the kitchen making coffee, still in his pajamas. He smiled when he saw me. "Where were you?" "I woke up and you were gone." "Couldn't sleep. Went for a drive." I poured myself some juice. "Marcus, I need to ask you something." "Sure, anything." "Why did you lie to me about wanting children?" He froze, the coffee cup halfway to his lips. "What are you talking about?" "I know about the vasectomy, Marcus, the one you had 3 years ago." His face went pale. "Naomi, I can explain." "I know about Diana. I know about the plan. I know about the trust fund, the donor sperm, the fake spa treatment, all of it." Marcus set down his cup carefully. His expression transformed from shock to something cold and dangerous. "You've been snooping." "Yes." "How much do you know?" "Everything. The emails, the plot to kill me, the timeline, all of it." He studied me for a long moment, then laughed. It was a chilling sound. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for, so what now? You confront me. We have a dramatic fight. You threaten divorce." "No," I said calmly. "I let the police arrest you." Right on cue, there was a knock at the door. Marcus's eyes widened as he saw Detective Mitchell and 3 uniformed officers through the window. "You called the cops?" "I did more than that. I recorded everything. Your office confession with Diana last night, all your emails, everything. You're going to prison, Marcus. Both of you." The detectives came in and read Marcus his rights. He didn't resist, but his eyes never left my face. "You'll never be able to prove intent," he said. "My lawyers will tear this apart." "We have more than enough," Detective Mitchell said, snapping handcuffs on his wrists. "Including your detailed written plan to murder your wife. That email you sent Diana last month about the car accident was very specific." As they let him out, Diana was being brought in from a police car. She'd been arrested at her apartment. When she saw me standing there, healthy and very much alive, she went berserk. "You bitch!" she screamed, fighting against the officers. "That money should be mine. Daddy never loved you. He only gave you everything because you were the oldest. You don't deserve it." "I deserved better than a sister who tried to kill me," I said quietly. "It was Marcus's plan," Diana sobbed, suddenly trying to play victim. "He manipulated me. He said you'd never find out. He said we could be happy together." "Save it for your lawyer," Detective Mitchell said, hauling her toward the police car. As I watched them both being driven away, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It was over. I was safe. My baby was safe. The trial was a media sensation, the story of a cardiologist and his lover, who happened to be his wife's sister, plotting to steal a $50 million inheritance by artificially inseminating the wife without consent and then murdering her, had all the elements of a crime thriller. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus's medical records proved the vasectomy. The spa's medical director turned state's witness in exchange for immunity, testifying about how Marcus had paid him $100,000 to perform the egg retrieval and implantation on me without my knowledge. The donor clinic confirmed that Marcus had purchased sperm under a false name, and the recordings sealed their fate. The jury heard Marcus coldly discussing timeline options for my murder. They heard Diana gleefully talking about redecorating my house once I was out of the way. They heard both of them laughing about how naive and trusting I was. The defense tried to argue entrapment, claiming I'd goaded them into saying incriminating things. But Patricia Moreno destroyed that argument, pointing out that I'd simply asked natural questions about my own pregnancy and future, and they'd volunteered their conspiracy. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, both Marcus and Diana were found guilty on all counts. conspiracy to commit murder, medical battery, fraud, and attempted theft. The judge sentenced Marcus to life without parole. For Diana, because she wasn't a medical professional and claimed to have been manipulated by Marcus, the sentence was 25 years. She wouldn't be eligible for parole for at least 15. I attended every day of the trial, my belly growing rounder with each week. By the sentencing, I was 7 months pregnant and waddling into the courtroom. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I stood up. Your Honor, Marcus Lawson didn't just betray me as a husband. He violated me as a doctor, as someone I trusted with my life and health. He stole my eggs, implanted a stranger's child in my womb, and planned to kill me once his scheme was complete. My sister Diana chose greed over family, over the bond we'd shared our entire lives. But here's what they didn't count on. I'm still here, I'm alive. And this baby, I placed my hand on my belly. This child that they created as part of their murder plot is going to be born into a life filled with love and truth and justice. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And I want them both to spend every day in prison thinking about the fact that they failed, that I won the inheritance fairly, that I'll raise this child well, and that they'll rot in cells while I live the life they tried to steal from me. When the bailiffs led Marcus out after sentencing, he looked at me one last time. I did love you once, he said quietly, before the money corrupted everything. No, you didn't, I replied. If you'd ever loved me, you couldn't have done any of this. Diana said nothing, just sobbed as she was taken away. 3 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Sophia Grace, after my mother who died when I was young. She had my father's eyes and my smile, and absolutely nothing of the anonymous donor who'd contributed half her DNA. The trust fund was released on schedule, all $50 million, free and clear. The first thing I did was set up a scholarship fund for young women studying architecture, my late mother's profession. The second thing was to donate $5 million to a charity helping victims of medical abuse. Patricia Moreno helped me establish legal guardianship documents, ensuring that if anything ever happened to me, Sophia would be raised by my best friend Vanessa, not by Marcus's family, who'd tried to claim rights to her. I sold the house I'd shared with Marcus, too many bad memories, and bought a beautiful Victorian on the coast. Sophia and I moved in when she was 6 months old, starting fresh in a place with no ghosts. Vanessa moved into the guest house and became Sophia's doting aunt. She apologized 1,000 times for not telling me about seeing Marcus and Diana together sooner. You were trying to protect me, I told her. I understand. And if you'd told me then, they might have changed their plans and I might never have uncovered the whole truth. Dr. Chen became a good friend. She testified at the trial, explaining how unusual it was for Marcus to perform procedures on his own wife, and how the vasectomy records had flagged her attention immediately. You saved my life, I told her after the trial. You saved your own life, she corrected. I just pointed you in the right direction. 2 years passed. Sophia grew into a bright, curious toddler who loved books and butterflies. We had a good life, the two of us. No man, no drama, just peace. I was at the park with Sophia one afternoon when I ran into someone from my past, David Chen, Dr. Chen's nephew, who I'd met briefly at a hospital fundraiser years ago. He was a pediatrician, recently moved back to town. Naomi? I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry, he said, watching Sophia chase butterflies. Don't be, we're happy now, aren't we, Sophie? Sophia ran over and hugged my legs. Mama, I caught a butterfly. David smiled. She's beautiful. She has your eyes. We talked for a while, and he asked if maybe we could get coffee sometime. I hesitated. The thought of trusting a doctor again, of trusting any man again, seemed impossible. But then Sophia tugged on my shirt. Mama, is he your friend? I don't know yet, sweetie. Maybe. I like him, Sophia declared with a child's simple wisdom. He has a nice smile. So I said yes to coffee, then to dinner, then slowly, carefully, over many months, I opened my heart just a little bit. David was patient. He never pushed. He understood that trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. He met Sophia's needs before trying to meet mine. He showed up, consistently, honestly. 3 years after Marcus's conviction, David proposed. It wasn't dramatic or elaborate. We were building a sandcastle with Sophia at the beach, and he just turned to me and said, I want to spend my life making sure you and Sophia always feel safe and loved. Will you marry me? I looked at this good man, this honest man who'd waited patiently while I healed, Then I looked at Sophia, who was clapping and jumping up and down because somehow she'd figured out what was happening. "Yes," I said. "Yes, but slowly, and with a very thorough prenup." He laughed. "Whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere." We got married in a small ceremony at sunset on our beach. Sophia was the flower girl, wearing a white dress and scattering petals with serious concentration. Vanessa was my maid of honor. Dr. Chen gave a toast about how love can bloom even in the darkest soil. I didn't invite any family. Diana was still in prison. My other relatives had tried to take her side during the trial, claiming I'd trapped her somehow. I was done with them all. But I had Vanessa, I had Dr. Chen, I had David and his wonderful family who welcomed Sophia and me with open arms. I had my little girl, and I had myself, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The local women's shelter asked me to speak at their annual fundraiser about surviving domestic betrayal and financial abuse. I agreed. Standing at the podium, looking out at the faces of survivors and advocates, I told my story. All of it. The betrayal, the fear, the investigation, the revenge. What Marcus and Diana didn't understand, I concluded, was that their own arrogance would be their downfall. They thought I was weak. They thought I was stupid. They thought I would never figure it out. But women are not weak because we trust. We're not stupid because we love. We're stronger than anyone gives us credit for, especially when we're protecting our children. To every woman here who's been betrayed, who's been manipulated, who's been told she's not smart enough or strong enough to survive on her own, you are. You absolutely are. And when you fight back with truth and justice on your side, you will win. Marcus thought he could play God with my body, my baby, and my life. Instead, he got a prison cell. Diana thought she could steal my inheritance and my life. Instead, she lost her freedom. And me, I got everything. My daughter, my freedom, my inheritance, and eventually a good man who treats me the way I always deserve to be treated. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice is so much sweeter. The audience rose in a standing ovation. I saw tears on many faces. Afterward, several women came up to tell me their stories, to thank me for speaking out, to ask for advice. I gave each one the same counsel. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that you're crazy for suspecting betrayal. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. 5 years later, Sophia was 7 years old, bright and happy, and completely unaware of the dark circumstances of her conception. David had legally adopted her, and she called him Dad. We decided together that when she was older, we'd tell her the truth in an age-appropriate way. But for now, she was just our daughter, loved and safe. Marcus and Diana were still in prison. I received occasional letters from Diana, begging for forgiveness, asking me to help her get an early release. I never responded. Forgiveness wasn't for her benefit. It was for mine. And I'd already forgiven her by choosing to live well, not by giving her false hope of redemption. Marcus never wrote. I heard through the legal system that he'd been attacked by other inmates after they learned what he'd done. Apparently, even criminals have standards about doctors who violate their patients. The $50 million had grown to almost $80 million through careful investments. I started a foundation in my mother's name, helping women escape abusive relationships and providing medical advocacy for victims of medical manipulation. Dr. Chen ran the medical branch. Patricia Moreno headed the legal division. We helped hundreds of women every year, women like me who'd been victimized by people they trusted. On Sophia's 8th birthday, we had a big party at our house. Children ran through the yard, eating cake and playing games. David grilled burgers. Vanessa organized party games. It was loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. As I watched Sophia blow out her candles, making a wish with her eyes squeezed shut, I felt David's arm around my waist. "What do you think she's wishing for?" he asked. "Probably a puppy," I laughed. "She's been dropping hints for months." "What would you wish for?" he asked. "If you could have anything." I looked around at my daughter, my husband, my friends, my beautiful home, my meaningful work. I thought about where I'd been 8 years ago, trapped in a marriage with a man who wanted me dead, pregnant with a baby conceived without my knowledge, with a sister who hated me enough to participate in my murder. And now I was here, truly happy for the first time in my adult life. I wouldn't change a thing, I said honestly. Every terrible thing that happened led me to this moment, and this moment is perfect. That night, after Sophia was asleep and David was in his study reviewing patient files, I went to my home office. On the wall was a framed photograph of my father, Douglas Harrison. He was smiling, proud, wearing his reading glasses that always slipped down his nose. "Thank you, Daddy," I whispered to the picture. "That trust fund you set up? You thought you were just protecting family wealth. But it ended up protecting my life. Your conditions exposed Marcus's true nature. Without that inheritance hanging over my future, he might have just divorced me quietly, and I never would have known what he was capable of. Instead, his greed made him reveal himself. And I survived. Sophia and I survived. We thrived." I thought about the other version of this story, the one where I never went to Dr. Chen, where I never found the emails, where Marcus succeeded. In that version, I was dead. My baby might be dead, and Marcus and Diana would be living in my house, spending my money, probably already planning their next scheme. But that wasn't this story. This story ended with them in prison, and me free. Sometimes late at night, I still had nightmares about that dinner with Diana and Marcus, about the moment I realized they wanted me dead. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing. But then David would wake up too, pulling me close, reminding me that I was safe. And I'd hear Sophia's soft breathing through the baby monitor we still kept on, even though she was getting older, because I needed to hear that she was safe too. Those nightmares became less frequent over time. The fear faded. The anger cooled. What remained was a fierce determination to live well, to protect other women, to make sure my daughter grew up knowing her worth and never tolerating betrayal. 8 years after the trial, I received a call from the prison. Diana was dying. Stage 4 cancer, only weeks to live. She wanted to see me one last time. I almost said no. What could she possibly say that would matter now? But something made me agree. Maybe it was closure. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was just the last remnant of the bond we'd once shared as sisters. The prison visiting room was gray and cold. Diana shuffled in, looking 20 years older than her actual age. Prison had destroyed the beauty she'd always relied on. Her hair was thin and gray. Her skin was sallow. She looked like a ghost. We sat across from each other, separated by a table. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for coming," Diana finally said, her voice raspy. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "I'm dying," she said unnecessarily. "I heard. I wanted to see you one more time, to say—" She stopped, tears running down her sunken cheeks. "I don't even know what to say. Sorry seems so inadequate." "It is," I agreed. "I was jealous," Diana said. "Our whole lives, you were the smart one, the responsible one, the one Dad was proud of. I was just the pretty one, the fun one. And when you got the trust fund and I got nothing, it broke something in me. So you tried to kill me. Marcus said it would be easy, that you'd never suspect, that we could be happy. Were you? Happy while you were planning my murder?" She shook her head. "No, I was terrified, excited, hateful, but never happy. And now I'm dying in prison, and you're alive and free and probably happy, and I'll never get to fix what I broke." "You can't fix it," I said. "Some things are too broken to repair." "I know." She reached across the table as if to touch my hand, then stopped. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about that question. Forgiveness. What did it mean? Absolving her of guilt, pretending it never happened, allowing her peace before she died? "I forgave you years ago," I finally said. "Not for you, for me, because carrying that anger was poisoning me. But forgiving you doesn't mean I trust you or love you or want you in my life. It just means I stopped letting you have power over my happiness." Diana nodded slowly. "That's fair. More than fair." She paused. "Is she beautiful? Your daughter?" "Yes." "I'm glad. I'm glad something good came from all that evil." "She didn't come from evil," I corrected. "She came from my resilience, my strength, my determination to survive." "Tell her," Diana started, then stopped. "No, don't tell her about me. Let me just be the bad aunt who went away. She doesn't need to know the details." "When she's old enough, I'll tell her the truth," I said. "But I'll also tell her how I protected her, how I fought for her, how I made sure she'd always be safe. I'll teach her to be strong and smart and never to trust blindly." Diana smiled sadly. "You're a good mother, better than I ever could have been." "I know." I left the prison without looking back. Diana died 3 weeks later. I didn't go to the funeral. I'd said my goodbye. Marcus was still serving his life sentence. I'd heard he'd found religion in prison, claiming he was a changed man. He'd tried to reach out through his lawyer, asking for a chance to meet Sophia, to explain himself. I shut that down immediately. Sophia would never meet the man who'd planned her birth as part of a murder plot. When she was older, if she wanted to know more about her genetic father, the anonymous donor, I'd help her find out. But Marcus would remain a dark footnote in history, not a presence in her life. 10 years after the trial, I stood on the porch of our home, watching Sophia play soccer in the yard with David and their 2 younger siblings, twins we'd had together, biological children of our marriage. Sophia was 12 now, confident and bright. She knew she was special, that her story was unusual, but she didn't know all the details yet. That conversation would come, soon, when she was ready. "Mom," she called, running over. "Did you see my goal?" "I saw it. Amazing." She hugged me, then ran back to the game. I watched her go, this miracle child, this baby who was supposed to be a key to my murder, but instead became my salvation. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia Moreno. "Another successful case. Woman you referred, we got her abuser convicted. She's free. Thank you for the foundation." I smiled. This was my legacy, not the money or the house or even the perfect revenge. My legacy was helping other women escape, survive, and thrive. As the sun set over our yard, painting everything in gold, David came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly," I said. Marcus wanted to destroy me for money. Instead, he gave me the push I needed to become who I was always meant to be. And who's that? Someone who fights back, someone who wins, someone who turns poison into medicine and hate into hope. He kissed my temple. "I'm glad Marcus was stupid enough to underestimate you." "Me too," I laughed. "Me too." That night, after the kids were asleep, I went to my office one last time. I pulled out the journal I'd been keeping since the trial, a record of my journey from victim to survivor to thriver. I wrote the final entry. 10 years ago, my husband and sister tried to kill me. They failed. Today, I'm happy, healthy, and using my experience to help others. My daughter is thriving, my marriage is strong, my foundation has helped hundreds of women escape abuse. This is what real revenge looks like. Not anger or violence or bitterness, but survival, joy, purpose. Living so well that your enemies can only watch from their prison cells and wonder how they could have been so wrong about you. To any woman reading this someday, if you're in a situation like mine, know this. You are stronger than you think. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Fight back smart, not hard. And never ever let anyone convince you that you're too naive or too stupid to see the truth. You are not weak. You are not foolish. You are a survivor. And survivors win. I closed the journal and put it away. Tomorrow, Sophia would ask about her birth father again, and I'd finally tell her the whole truth. She was old enough now, strong enough, but tonight I'd just sit in my peaceful home, listening to the sound of my family sleeping safely, and be grateful that I'd survived to see this day. Marcus thought he was so clever. Diana thought they'd outsmart me. But in the end, their arrogance was their downfall and my salvation. And that, more than any court verdict or prison sentence, was the truest justice of all. The morning of Sophia's 13th birthday arrived with unexpected news. I was making pancakes when my phone rang. It was the warden from the women's correctional facility where Diana had died 3 years ago. "Mrs. Chen, I'm calling because we found something in Diana Dixon's personal effects that was marked to be delivered to you upon review. It took this long because it was flagged for security clearance. I think you should come pick it up in person." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "A journal and some letters. I can't discuss the contents over the phone, but I believe you'll want to see them." I told David I needed to make a quick trip. He looked concerned but didn't press. "Take Vanessa with you," he suggested. "You shouldn't do this alone." Vanessa and I drove to the prison in silence. My mind raced with possibilities. What could Diana have possibly written that took 3 years to clear security? The warden, a stern woman named Gloria Banks, met us in her office. She handed me a manila envelope, thick and sealed. "I read portions of this as part of the security review," Warden Banks said carefully. "Mrs. Chen, some of what's in here is disturbing. There are details about the conspiracy that never came out at trial. I think you should know that Diana was more involved in the planning than she admitted." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a leather-bound journal and a stack of letters, all addressed to me but never sent. I opened the journal first. Diana's handwriting filled every page, neat and controlled at the beginning, growing more frantic toward the end. The first entry was dated 6 years before her arrest. Met Marcus Lawson today at Naomi's birthday party. He's handsome, successful, and completely bored with my sister. I can see it in his eyes when he looks at her. There's no passion, no fire, just comfortable routine. When he looked at me, though, I saw interest, real interest. I think this could be fun. I felt Vanessa's hand on my shoulder as I read. The entries continued, chronicling the beginning of the affair. But it wasn't Marcus who initiated it. It was Diana. I kissed Marcus tonight. Naomi was upstairs sleeping, exhausted from her long day at work. He resisted at first, said it was wrong, but I could tell he wanted me. Everyone always wants me. I'm the pretty sister, the fun sister. Why should Naomi get everything just because she's responsible and boring? Page after page detailed their affair, but more disturbingly, Diana's growing obsession with my father's inheritance. Marcus told me about the trust fund today. $50 million. $50 million. And Naomi gets it all just because she's the oldest, just because she fits Daddy's stupid conditions about being married and having a baby. It's not fair. I should get something too. Marcus and I started talking about possibilities. My breath caught as I reached an entry from 4 years ago. I found the perfect solution. Marcus can't divorce Naomi before she gets the inheritance. The prenup gives him nothing if he initiates divorce. But if she were to die after getting the money, as her spouse, he'd inherit everything. And if I'm with Marcus, that means I get it too. We just need her to have a baby first. Marcus said he got a vasectomy years ago without telling her. He never wanted kids with her. But we can make her pregnant another way. There are medical procedures. Marcus has connections. This could actually work. I wanted to stop reading, but I couldn't. The journal detailed everything, how Diana researched egg retrieval procedures, how she found the corrupt medical director at the spa, how she personally interviewed donor profiles to select sperm, looking for someone who resembled our family so the baby wouldn't look obviously different. I chose donor 4873 because he has Dad's coloring. If the baby looks like our side of the family, Naomi will never question it. She's so trusting, so stupid. She actually believes Marcus wants children with her. She has no idea he's been planning her death for 2 years. But the most chilling entries came later. Marcus is getting cold feet. He says maybe we should just wait, find another way. But I can't wait. I've lived in Naomi's shadow my entire life. The smart sister, the successful sister, the one Daddy loved more. I'm tired of being second. I told Marcus if he backs out now, I'll tell Naomi everything and he'll lose her and the money. He agreed to continue with the plan. So Diana hadn't been manipulated by Marcus. She'd been the driving force. She'd threatened him to keep him in line. I turned to the letters next. They were dated over the years Diana had been in prison, written but never sent. The first one, written a month after her conviction. Dear Naomi, I'm writing this even though I'll never send it. The lawyer says any contact with you could hurt my appeal, but I need to write this down. I need you to know that I'm not sorry for wanting more. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry Marcus was such a coward who kept detailed records. I'm sorry you were smarter than we thought, but I'm not sorry for believing I deserved better than the scraps of life I was given while you got everything. Another letter, written a year later. I had a dream about you last night. We were children again, playing in the backyard. You were building something with blocks, focused and serious. I was dancing around, trying to get Dad's attention. He barely looked at me. He was watching you, proud of how carefully you were building. Even then, even as children, you were the one who mattered. I think that's when I started hating you. Not when we were adults fighting over Marcus or money. But back then, when I realized I would always be the pretty distraction and you would always be the important one. The letters continued, growing more desperate and self-pitying as Diana's illness progressed. But the final letter, written just days before her death, was different. Naomi, I'm dying. The cancer is everywhere. I have maybe a week left. I keep thinking about what I told you in that last visit, that I was jealous. But that wasn't the whole truth. The truth is, I wanted to be you. I wanted your life, your husband, your money, your father's love. I thought if I took all those things, I could finally feel like I was enough. But even with Marcus, even with the plan, even with the possibility of all that money, I never felt enough. I felt empty. And now I'm dying in prison, and you're out there living, and I finally understand that the problem was never you. It was me. I was always going to be empty because I never built anything myself. I only tried to take what you'd built. I wish I could go back and be your sister instead of your enemy. But I can't, so I'll die here, alone, and you'll never have to think about me again. Maybe that's the justice I deserve. I set down the letters, tears streaming down my face. Vanessa was crying too. She was sick long before the cancer, Vanessa whispered. Emotionally sick. I know. I wiped my eyes. And I can't even feel satisfied by that. I just feel sad. Sad that she wasted her whole life being jealous instead of just living. Warden Banks spoke up. There's one more thing, Mrs. Chen. Diana left instructions that when she died, she wanted her body donated to science, but she also left a small life insurance policy. $5,000. She instructed that it be given to a women's shelter in your name. It's not much, but I think it was her way of trying to contribute something positive before the end. I nodded, unable to speak. Even in death, Diana was complicated. We left the prison with the journal and letters. In the car, Vanessa asked, "What are you going to do with those?" I don't know. Part of me wants to burn them. Part of me thinks I should keep them as a reminder of what jealousy and greed can do to a person. What about Sophia? Will you show her? I thought about my daughter, turning 13 today, about to become a teenager. Someday, when she's older, when she can understand that people are complicated, that even villains have their own pain. But not today. Today is for celebrating her life, not dwelling on how it began. When I got home, the house was full of decorations. David had clearly been busy. Sophia was in the living room with her siblings, the twins Max and Ruby, now 5 years old, helping them make birthday cards. Mom! Sophia ran over and hugged me. Where did you go? Just had to take care of some business, sweetheart. But I'm here now. Ready for your party? Her friends arrived in the afternoon. 13 giggling girls took over the house. I watched Sophia laugh with them, so confident and happy, and marveled at how different she was from what Marcus and Diana had planned. They'd wanted to create her as a tool, a key to unlock my inheritance before disposing of me. Instead, she'd become a symbol of my strength, my resilience. She was loved not because of genetics or money, but because she was herself. Kind, funny, smart, and completely unaware of the darkness that had surrounded her conception. That evening, after the party, after the cake and presents, after the friends had gone home, I sat Sophia down. Sweetheart, we to have a talk. An important one. David sat beside me, holding my hand. Sophia's face grew serious. Something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. But you're 13 now, and I think you're old enough to know the truth about your birth father. We'd always told her that her biological father was someone who'd helped us have a baby, but that David was her real dad in every way that mattered. She'd accepted this easily as a child, but lately I'd seen questions in her eyes. Okay, she said quietly. I told her. Not everything. She didn't need to know about the murder plot yet. But I told her about the vasectomy, about discovering the pregnancy, about how her biological father was an anonymous donor, about the divorce and why Marcus had lied. So he never wanted me. Sophia's voice was small. He wanted to use you, I said honestly. But here's the thing, Sophie. The minute you were born, the minute I held you, you became mine. Not because of biology or plans or anything else. You became mine because I chose you. Every single day since then, I've chosen you. And Dad chose you too. David squeezed her hand. The day I married your mom, I became your dad. Not biologically, but in every way that matters. And I've never regretted it for a single second. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, Do I have to meet him? My biological father, the donor. Only if you want to. The clinic has records. When you're 18, if you want to search for him, we'll help you. But you never have to if you don't want to. I don't want to, she said firmly. I have a dad. I don't need another one. She hugged David tightly, and I saw tears in his eyes. What about my birth father, the one who lied to you? Marcus? She asked. Is he still in prison? Yes, and he'll be there for the rest of his life. Good. There was a fierceness in her voice that reminded me of myself. He doesn't get to hurt you anymore. No, he doesn't. Later that night, after Sophia was asleep, David found me in the kitchen, looking through Diana's journal again. You should burn that, he said gently. Don't let her poison reach into our present. I can't. This is history. Terrible history, but mine nonetheless. Then lock it away. Put it somewhere safe where Sophia can read it when she's ready, years from now, but don't let it consume you. He was right. I put the journal and letters in my safe deposit box at the bank, along with copies of all the trial documents, the recordings, everything. Someday, Sophia might want to understand the full story, but until then, it would stay locked away. 3 months later, I received another unexpected call. This one was from Marcus's attorney. "Mrs. Chen, my client wishes to speak with you. He's requesting a visitation." "Absolutely not. He says he has information about your father's trust fund, something that was never disclosed during the trial. He claims it's important." I hesitated. What could Marcus possibly know about my father's trust that I didn't? "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. I called Patricia Moreno. "What do you think? Is it a trick?" "Probably," Patricia said. "But it might also be legitimate. Your father was paranoid and secretive. It's possible there's something Marcus discovered that we don't know about. I'll go with you if you decide to visit." I debated for a week. Finally, curiosity won. I agreed to a single visit with Patricia present and everything recorded. The men's correctional facility was grimmer than the women's prison where Diana had died. Marcus was brought into the visiting room in shackles. Prison had aged him terribly. His hair was completely gray now, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. He sat down across from me, separated by a reinforced glass partition. We picked up phones. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was hoarse, like he didn't use it much. "You have 10 minutes. What information do you supposedly have?" "It's about your father's will, the trust fund. There's a second clause that was never activated." "What second clause?" "Your father had a provision that if you ever faced a life-threatening betrayal related to the trust, specifically if someone married to you attempted to harm you for the inheritance, the trust would double. It was his way of protecting you from gold diggers. He set up monitoring through his lawyers. They were supposed to watch for exactly what I did." I stared at him. "You're lying." "I'm not. Call Elijah Stone. Ask him about the Douglas Harrison Protection Clause. Your father was even more paranoid than I realized. He anticipated everything, including someone like me." "Why are you telling me this now?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Because I have nothing left to lose. Because in a strange way, I think Douglas was right to protect you. You were always too good for me, too trusting, and I destroyed something beautiful because of greed. You destroyed it because you're a sociopath who saw me as an ATM machine." "Yes," he didn't argue. "But I wanted you to know about the clause. You deserve to access the full inheritance your father intended for you. That's all I wanted to say." I hung up the phone without another word. Patricia and I left immediately. In the car, Patricia was already on the phone with Elijah Stone. I heard her side of the conversation. "A protection clause. Double the trust. Why didn't you tell us?" When she hung up, she looked stunned. "It's true. Elijah said your father set up an automatic trigger. When Marcus was convicted of conspiracy to murder you for the inheritance, it activated the clause. There's an additional $50 million waiting for you. Elijah said he's been trying to reach you for weeks, but his letters were going to your old address." I sat in shock. My father, even from beyond the grave, had protected me. He'd known that wealth could make me a target, and he'd prepared for it. The additional $50 million was transferred to my accounts within the month. I used it to massively expand the foundation. We opened shelters in 10 more cities. We hired 50 more lawyers to help women escape abusive situations. We created a scholarship program for women who'd lost years of their education due to abuse. The Naomi Harrison Chen Foundation became one of the largest domestic abuse prevention organizations in the country. Every woman we helped was a victory over Marcus, over Diana, over everyone who'd ever tried to use wealth as a weapon against vulnerable people. 5 years later, Sophia was 18, about to start college. She'd been accepted to Stanford with a full scholarship to study law. She wanted to join the foundation someday, to help women like I had been helped. "Mom," she asked one evening as we were packing her dorm room essentials, "can I read Grandpa's journal now? And Aunt Diana's? I think I'm ready." I retrieved them from the safe deposit box. We sat together in my office, and I watched her read. Her face went through many emotions: shock, disgust, sadness, and finally a kind of determined anger. "They were going to kill you," she said flatly. "They created me just to kill you." "Yes. But you didn't let them." "No, I didn't. And you kept me, loved me, even though I was part of their plan." "You were never part of their plan, Sophie. The baby they wanted to create was a tool, but you, the person you became, you were all mine. You were my choice, my daughter, my victory." She closed the journals and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I want to use my maiden name at Stanford. Not Chen. I want to be Sophia Harrison, like Grandpa. I want to carry his name and his legacy." "You can be anyone you want to be, sweetheart." I want to be like you, Mom. I want to be someone who fights back. And she was. Sophia graduated from Stanford Law in the top of her class. She joined the foundation as lead counsel, winning case after case for women trapped in situations like mine had been. 20 years after the trial, Marcus died in prison. A heart attack, ironic for a cardiologist. His family requested I attend the funeral. I declined. I was at the foundation that day, working on a case involving a woman whose husband had secretly been drugging her to control her. We won. She got her children, her freedom, and enough money to start over. That evening, I stood in the foundation's lobby, looking at the wall of photographs. Hundreds of women we'd helped over the years. Their faces told stories of survival, of strength, of choosing to fight back. Sophia came up beside me, now 32 years old, and the foundation's director. We just got the Ramirez verdict. Full custody, restraining order, and criminal charges filed. That's our 500th major victory. 500 families saved, I said quietly. All because you refused to be a victim. I thought about that young woman I'd been, sitting in Dr. Chen's office 20 years ago, hearing that her husband couldn't be her baby's father. How terrified I'd been, how betrayed. And I thought about the woman I'd become, stronger, wiser, dedicated to making sure no woman ever had to face what I'd faced alone. Marcus died today, I told Sophia. Your biological father's father, I mean. I heard. Do you feel anything? Relief, maybe. Closure. Mostly just gratitude that I survived him. Me too. Sophia put her arm around me. You know what the best revenge is, Mom? It's not that he died in prison. It's that we're here, doing this, helping people. He tried to destroy you to get money. Instead, you're using that money to save lives. That's the real victory. She was right. Every woman we helped was a repudiation of everything Marcus and Diana had tried to do. They'd wanted to use wealth as a weapon. I'd turned it into a shield for others. That night, David and I sat on our porch, watching the sunset over the ocean. We'd been married for 20 years now. The twins were in college. Sophia was thriving. Life was peaceful. Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if Marcus had succeeded? David asked. Sometimes. But then I remember that I wouldn't have you, wouldn't have the twins, wouldn't have built the foundation. Everything good in my life came from surviving that nightmare. No regrets? None. Well, maybe one. I wish I'd trusted my instincts sooner. I knew something was wrong for months before I found out about the vasectomy. I ignored that little voice telling me to investigate. But you listened eventually. That's what matters. I leaned against him, comfortable and safe. I want every woman to know that voice, that instinct is usually right. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore it. Don't let anyone convince you you're crazy or paranoid. Investigate. Ask questions. Protect yourself. That should be the foundation's motto. Maybe it should? The next morning, I was at the foundation early, working on our new public awareness campaign. My phone rang. It was Dr. Chen, now retired but still a close friend. Naomi, turn on the news, Channel 7. I switched on the television in my office. A breaking news report showed a man being arrested, led out of a hospital in handcuffs. The headline read, Prominent surgeon arrested for performing unauthorized procedures on sedated patients. The reporter's voice, Dr. Richard Vance has been arrested after 3 women came forward claiming he performed medical procedures on them without consent while they were under anesthesia. The allegations are similar to a case from 20 years ago involving Dr. Marcus Lawson, who was convicted of artificially inseminating his wife without her knowledge. My blood ran cold. Dr. Vance, the same surgeon who'd performed Marcus's vasectomy. The report continued. Authorities believe there may be more victims. Dr. Vance has been practicing for 30 years and has performed thousands of procedures. I called Patricia immediately. We need to help them. However many women he violated, we need to help them all. Within a week, the foundation had set up a hotline, specifically for Dr. Vance's potential victims. 47 women called. 47 women who'd gone in for routine procedures and suspected something was wrong but had been told they were imagining things. We represented all of them. The case took 3 years to prosecute, but we won. Dr. Vance was sentenced to life in prison, his medical license revoked, and every victim received compensation and justice. The lead plaintiff was a woman named Jennifer, who'd been only 23 when Dr. Vance had unnecessarily removed one of her ovaries while she was under anesthesia. She'd woken up mutilated and had been told it was medically necessary, but her medical records told a different story. After the trial, Jennifer came to thank me personally. "You didn't just help me win my case," she said, crying. "You showed me that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts were right, that I deserved justice. Because of you, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to be the kind of doctor who listens to women, who believes them." Stories like Jennifer's kept me going. Every woman we helped became another victory, another proof that speaking up mattered, that fighting back mattered. 25 years after my own trial, I was invited to speak at a national conference on medical ethics. The auditorium held 2,000 people, doctors, lawyers, advocates, survivors. I stood at the podium and told my story one more time, but this time I focused on the lessons. When I discovered my husband's betrayal, I had a choice, I said. I could crumble, or I could fight. I chose to fight. But here's what I want everyone in this room to understand. Fighting doesn't always mean being loud or aggressive. Sometimes fighting means being smart, strategic, patient. I didn't confront Marcus immediately. I gathered evidence. I built an unshakable case. I made sure that when I struck, it would be devastating and permanent. That's what I want every woman facing abuse or betrayal to know. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be thorough. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find allies. Build your case. And when you're ready, when you have everything you need, then you strike with the full force of truth and law behind you. Marcus and Diana thought I was weak because I was kind. They thought I was stupid because I was trusting. Their arrogance was their fatal flaw. They underestimated me. Don't let anyone underestimate you, and don't underestimate yourself. You are stronger than you know. You are smarter than they think, and you will survive. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, dozens of women lined up to speak with me, to share their stories, to ask for advice. I spent hours talking with them, listening, offering hope, because that's what this had always been about. Not revenge, but hope. Hope that justice exists. Hope that survival is possible. Hope that something good can come from something terrible. That night back home, I found a letter waiting for me. It was from the anonymous sperm donor, the biological father of my daughter. The fertility clinic had contacted him years ago, when Sophia turned 18, asking if he'd be willing to be identified. He'd declined then, but now he was writing to me. "Dear Mrs. Chen," the letter began, "my name is Dr. James Morrison. 25 years ago, I was a medical resident drowning in student debt. I donated sperm to earn extra money. I never thought much about it until I read about your case in the news 5 years ago. When I realized I might be the biological father of the child in that case, I was horrified. I'd unwittingly become part of a conspiracy to murder you. I've carried guilt about this for years. I'm writing now to tell you that I've followed your foundation's work. The good you've done in the world is extraordinary. If my genetic contribution helped create the daughter who now leads that foundation, then something positive came from what was meant to be evil. I don't expect or want any relationship with Sophia. She has a father, and a good one from what I've read. But I wanted you to know that I'm proud, in a strange way, to have unknowingly helped create such an amazing young woman. You did that. You raised her right. I'm now a pediatrician specializing in child abuse cases. I'd like to make a donation to your foundation. Enclosed is a check. It's not much compared to what you're doing, but it's my way of turning my small part in that nightmare into something good. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for showing the world what real strength looks like." The check was for $50,000. I immediately donated it to the foundation in his name, designated for medical advocacy services. I showed the letter to Sophia. She read it carefully, then smiled. "He seems like a good person. Maybe someday I'll meet him, just to say thank you for the DNA. But you're right. David is my real dad. Biology is just biology." "Yes, it is." 30 years after the trial, I turned 65. The foundation threw me a retirement party, though I had no intention of actually retiring. Too many women still needed help. David, now 70, had retired from his pediatric practice and spent his days volunteering at the foundation's legal clinic. The twins, Max and Ruby, were both doctors. Max, an OB/GYN who specialized in reproductive ethics. Ruby, an ER physician who'd created protocols for identifying domestic abuse victims. And Sophia, my miracle baby, my daughter who was supposed to be a weapon but became a shield, stood up to give a speech. "My mom likes to say I was her victory," Sophia said to the crowded ballroom. "But the truth is, she was mine. I was conceived as part of a murder plot. I could have grown up broken by that knowledge. Instead, I grew up knowing that love is stronger than biology, that family is built through choice and dedication, and that when terrible people try to use you as a weapon, the best revenge is becoming a shield for others. Mom didn't just survive, she transformed her trauma into triumph. She took the money that was supposed to motivate her murder and used it to save hundreds of lives. She took the baby that was supposed to be a tool and raised a daughter who's now helping other daughters stay safe. That's not just survival, that's alchemy. That's turning poison into medicine, hate into hope, evil into extraordinary good. So tonight, we're not celebrating retirement. We're celebrating 30 years of victories. 30 years of women saved, children protected, abusers punished, and justice served. We're celebrating the fact that Marcus Lawson and Diana Dixon failed. They failed completely, absolutely, and their failure saved hundreds of lives. Here's to 30 more years of turning victims into victors. Here's to my mom, Marianne Chen, who taught me that the best revenge is living so well that your enemies can only watch from their graves and marvel at their own stupidity. The room erupted in applause. I stood up, tears streaming down my face, and hugged my daughter. "Thank you," I whispered, "for being exactly who you are." "Thank you for making me," she whispered back. "And I don't mean biologically, I mean for choosing me every single day." That night, as David and I drove home along the coastal highway, I thought about the journey, from that terrifying day in Dr. Chen's office to this moment of celebration and triumph. Marcus had wanted to destroy me for money. Diana had wanted to erase me from jealousy. Instead, they'd forged me into something stronger than I'd ever been before. "Any regrets?" David asked, the same question he'd asked 20 years ago. "Not a single one," I said, and I meant it. The next morning, I went to the foundation early. There was a new client waiting, a young woman, 28 years old, pregnant and terrified. Her husband had just told her he wanted a paternity test because he suspected her of cheating. She knew she'd never been unfaithful, but something in his accusation felt wrong. "My instinct says he's hiding something," she told me, her hands shaking. "But everyone tells me I'm paranoid, that pregnancy hormones are making me emotional." I took her hands in mine and looked her directly in the eyes. "Never ignore your instincts," I said firmly. "If something feels wrong, investigate. I'm going to help you. I'm going to make sure you're safe. And if your husband is planning anything terrible, we're going to stop him before he can hurt you." Her eyes filled with tears of relief. "You believe me?" "I believe you," I said. "I believe you because 30 years ago, I was exactly where you are. And someone believed me. And that belief saved my life." We got to work. Patricia, now semi-retired but still sharp as ever, came in to consult. Sophia joined us with her legal expertise. We formed a team around this young woman, just like a team had formed around me. 2 weeks later, we uncovered the truth. Her husband had been planning to have her declared mentally incompetent after the baby was born, using the paranoia about paternity as evidence. He was having an affair with her best friend and wanted full custody so he could raise the child with his mistress. We stopped him. We gathered evidence, got restraining orders, filed for divorce, and secured full custody for our client before he could execute his plan. Another victory. Another woman saved. Another family protected. As I watched our client walk out of the office, free and safe with her baby, I felt the same satisfaction I'd felt 30 years ago when Marcus and Diana were arrested. This was my legacy. Not the money, not the trial, not even the foundation itself. My legacy was every woman who didn't become a victim because someone had believed her, helped her, shown her how to fight back. Marcus had tried to end my story. Instead, he'd given me a purpose that would outlive us all, and that, more than any prison sentence or financial victory, was the truest justice I could have imagined. I thought about writing a letter to Marcus before he died, telling him exactly this, but I'd decided against it. He didn't deserve my words, my thoughts, my energy. He'd gotten what he deserved, a life wasted in prison, dying alone, forgotten by everyone except as a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed. Meanwhile, I had lived, truly lived. I'd loved and been loved. I'd built something meaningful. I'd turned my greatest trauma into my greatest triumph. That was the best revenge of all.